Quick note that you're probably not even going to notice, um, depending on when you join me. But hey, just quick note, I'm recording this for the podcast. So if you leave a comment, I greatly appreciate that. I look forward to reading your comments. I'm not going to respond on air. I'll come in and type later, and that's probably just going to be the kind of the go-to for the lives. Period. It kind of depending. If I'm doing the recording for the podcast, I'm just going to roll, and I'd love to have the conversation with you further in the comments afterwards. For the sake of being able to record this for the podcast, I'll do other lives that are more of a live training, and I'd love to have more interaction at that point. Okay, or I'll be able to interact more at that point. So with all that, let's just dive into it today. Welcome back. This is the Unshakable Podcast. I'm your host, Peter Lynch, and I've got my cup of coffee right here. And you're wondering, man, it looks a little late there to be drinking coffee. Maybe it's a little late to you, not to me. It is thundering and raining outside here in Central Florida, where we are right now. I've been living the nomad life, so it's at least for the time being, with two little kids, I think we've been feeling like it's time to settle back down somewhere, but finding home has kind of been the journey of the last several months. So with that, let's and I'm an entrepreneur. I coach entrepreneurs to step into their full level of success, specifically men step into their calling and accelerate their growth. So that is the topic for today, is growth. What is it? How do you do it? Right? Because if you're at all like me, you've sat there in the past and you've wondered, great, I want to grow. How do I do it? So forgive the awful grammar if that's, but we're just going to jump right into it in normal language, right? What is it? Growth. What is it? How do you do it? How do you do this thing called growth? If you're ready to grow, let's step back and look at what's the opposite of growth. Right? I look at the opposite of growth is stagnation. It's feeling stuck, right? Nothing's changing. Really, the opposite of growth we would say is decay. I would think is more accurate, right? So decay or death, right? If you're not growing, you're dying. Let's really be like, if you look at nature, everything's growing or dying. There's no neutral. There's no just holding the line. There's no, right? So it's actually easier to grow than it is to hold things. That's one of the mistakes in business, is to just try to hold and keep it steady, keep it even, right? And kind of hold the pattern. It's not going to work. You're actually working against natural forces. So it's easier to grow or decay. So, right. So that's why we've got to focus on growth. So then how do you do it? Well, how do you break out of being stuck? How do you move forward? How do you actually freaking grow? Well, it really comes down to what are you focused on? What do you want to accomplish? I mean, these are just, it's amazing to me how the simple things get overlooked, and ideas like growth, mindset, personal performance, productivity, which are really just the underpinnings of everything that I work with my clients on to sharpen up and dial in so that you can experience explosive growth. Right? These things get overcomplicated. Growth is simple. You want to grow. It starts with a decision in the moment that you're going to, right there, and you make a commitment to it. Okay, you make a commitment to be different, to change your results, your outcome. Number one, it's about identity. It's about shifting your identity, right? If you're going to grow, that means you're going to become someone different. You're going to step into a new identity, a new alternate version of yourself, a leveled up version. Okay, that's really right. So it comes down to beginning with opening up with the question of who is that? What is that alternate identity? And I don't mean alternate as in like it's not something where you become a new person. You're becoming who you are underneath all the conditioning, underneath all the baggage and the garbage that you carry around right now that's not true to you, right? Which is a lot of where the frustration and the pain comes from, that we feel, at a very unconscious level or a subliminal level, right? If you're experiencing that, just worth it. Life feels like it's where there's a lot of right? There's a lot of just abrasion, where everything's like, it just doesn't feel right. Probably means because, you're not being true to yourself. And that's really what I like to say that if you don't pursue your dream, the ghost of your dream is going to haunt you. The dream is your calling. It's your potential that you're meant to live into. So that means you're already fully equipped to do that, right? You're already fully equipped to achieve your purpose, your calling in life. So your identity, your potential is already there. It's waiting for you to discover it. It's waiting for you to step into it. Carl Jung says the future self reflects upon the present self, the current self, right? So it's this mysterious thing where in the present moment, we're able to alter or redetermine that future self, which for me is really about discovering who is that future self, that potential self that God has made you to be. And are you living into that now? And if you're not, you're feeling the consequences of that, the symptoms of it. Okay. Right. And it's not because you're being punished or bad or anything like that. It's just simply because that's how we're designed. Pain is not here to make us suffer. Pain is a symptom guiding us to a better life. Right. So that's where a lot of emotional pain, if you know, like I know a lot about that emotional pain in my life that's just been there because the internal being is crying out saying, this isn't who I am. I'm made for more. I'm capable of so much more, and I want to step into it. I want to lean into it. So the pain is there to guide you to the truth, to the healing, to your power. It's about leaning into your pain. So that's one of the major principles we can anchor in and really just step into next. So it starts with defining your future vision, your identity. So that identity is also carries with it a vision of your life. How does that future identity, that new identity, operate? What kind of business? Right? How do you show up in your business differently? How is your business? So you're creating, when you set a new identity, a vision is created inherently around that new identity, right? You can't just change your identity and everything else stays the same. And this, right, this is where what we're getting into next about leaning into the pain is going to become very important because growth is painful. And that's really what I want to underline is growth is so painful. It requires of you everything. You can't carry your old baggage with you because growth demands that you surrender it, right? And grow beyond it. You can't keep unhealthy habits and step into a growth identity, right? You can't take your business to the next level with your second rate, you know, outdated old habits, beliefs, and mindset, right? Those are the things dragging you down. So if you're feeling stuck in your life, stuck in your business, right? It's about what's necessary. The necessity is to lean into the pain of growth, the pain of change. And one of the things that happens is when you set a new identity for yourself and you start stepping into that, because it's instantaneous. We think it's like, oh, it's going to be this long drawn. It's instantaneous that who you are changes because your life changes at the speed of thought. And how long does it take for you to think of something? It's the classic purple elephant example. You just thought of a purple elephant. How long did it take you? Like instantaneous. So your life changes at the speed of thought and everything else catches up around that. Right. So part of it is, and that's again, the power of identity, the power of vision is it anchors in your focus. Then you can focus in on this. And honestly, at that point, everything else becomes a threat to that. So this is one of the classic things. I see a lot of entrepreneurs who are stuck spinning in circles and they're not moving forward anymore. Why? Because they've gotten to a level of success, but now they're spinning in circles because they're trying to do too many things. They're trying to carry everything with them. And it's time to let go. It's time to cut things off. Decide means to cut off, right? So when you're deciding to move forward, you're letting go of everything that is contradictory to your vision and to your identity because it is actually the enemy of your growth. And so, leaning into the pain, part of the pain that you're going to experience is your old environment, and that means people are included in that. The old people that are used to you in your old identity are going to try to keep you in check because one of the primary drivers of the human psyche is survival, which is based on comfort zone. That's the old idea of the comfort zone. So growth is far outside your comfort zone. That's why you're going to have to prepare yourself to go through pain in order to grow. But it's when you lean into the pain, you find your power. Right? Power is on the other side of pain. Or you could choose the pain of complacency and stagnation, right? I mean, because one way or another, it really comes down to choose your suffering. Will you suffer for that with your own greatness? Suffer through the process of becoming great? Or will you suffer in complacency, stagnation, and spinning in circles and getting the same results and talking about, oh, I'd like to grow. Yeah, I'd like to, it drives me nuts. when I start seeing that pattern with people when they want to talk to me about growth, but they never want to move forward, whether that's with me or somebody else, becomes irrelevant. I don't really freaking care. What I do care about is that people succeed and step into their greatness. So with that, you cannot accept mediocrity and greatness at the same time. They are at conflict. So once again, if you have mediocre beliefs, mediocre friends, mediocre habits, and now you're setting yourself the vision and the identity of greatness, those things are at war. So you will be at war. And the battleground is your mind. Okay, it's the thoughts that you think. Are your thoughts stronger than your emotions? Because your emotions are going to tell you chicken out, back out, freak out. It's tough. It's hard. It's scary. We might die. The old subconscious is going to step in, and because it's programmed for survival, and it's going to say, this is different. We might die. We're used to. So your subconscious mind, it will be reflected by your environment and your friends who are used to you being that old identity. And as soon as you change the habit and the pattern, everything around you, it's an ecosystem. An ecosystem is dependent on everything in that system operating as usual. As soon as something is no longer operating as usual, there's social ecosystems. So families are a great example of this, and it's why sometimes you've got to cut your family off so that you can grow. Because if you're going to try to stay around, and I know that sounds terrible, but it's a hard reality. Like sometimes the biggest thing pulling you down is your family, because they want you to stay the same, because they're threatened by your growth. And your friends will do the same thing to you. They'll be threatened by your growth because they're threatened by somebody pursuing their greatness. Why? Because complacency is threatened by greatness. And that, once again, becomes the delineate. It's a binary. It's 1 or 0. It's on or off. We're either going for greatness or we're settling for complacency and mediocrity, right? And if you've got friends and you love them, and I get this, you love your friends, you love your family, but they're in the land of complacency and they want to drag you back. Why? Because that's human nature. You're right. It just is. We can argue about that, but it's not going to change. Human nature follows a pattern. And one of them is that we like to keep things the same because that's what our whole biology is programmed for, which is where all the emotion comes from, is really the unconscious mind speaking, because it uses emotion to try to alter your behavior, because your behavior is what leads to your results. But the most powerful way that you can govern yourself is to stay in control of your mind. So when you master your mind, you master your ability to grow. So, but coming back to this idea, right? So how do you grow? Well, you set yourself your identity and your vision, and then you focus on that and only that. And everything else is going to come up, and it's even going to tell you, hey, you're not that, right? It's going to try to give you feedback that's contradictory to it. Because even your rational mind, this is the interesting thing. So there's this part of you that's the higher mind. Your soul is crying out for greatness because it is made for greatness, right? The soul is, or your spirit is that which is greater than all the rest of you. Your subconscious mind and your rational mind are not. They're just here. The rational mind's here to process information and data, and then your subconscious mind is programmed for survival. So I mean, you've got to guide yourself. You have to lead yourself. When you can lead yourself, you can lead others. But I'm not going to follow somebody who can't lead themselves. You know what I mean? I'm not going to follow somebody. There's this idea out there like, oh, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, and it's like, that sounds nice. But I mean, I think leadership is a whole lot more than that, because if that's all it is, well, then Hitler had a lot of influence. I've known some people that have led their companies and they have a lot of influence because they write the check, but they have no respect. They don't have, they're morally bankrupt. And they're not good leaders. They drive their company, and their teams down because they're insecure, because they don't lead themselves, because they're scared to get uncomfortable. So that's the bottom line, really, of what I drive at with growth is, if you're scared to get uncomfortable, you will never grow. So how do you do it? You stay consistent and committed to this new vision and this new identity, despite the obstacles, because the obstacles will come up. It's not if, it's when. And when is sooner than later. Yeah, I can guarantee you that, right? The more intense you set your trajectory of growth, the more intense the resistance will be, because it really comes down to how bad do you want it. So the real challenge here is, are you committed to follow through? Because if you're not, you didn't really want it in the first place. That's the real thing. So if you just want to have a real hard but effective metric for yourself that I believe we should all live by, this is accountability to live by, is look at your results. That's what you want, because your results are a direct reflection of your focus and your actions. So if you want to really find out where your focus is and what, and where your mindset is at, don't spin in circles and go watch a bunch of YouTube videos about like all the mindset stuff, blah, 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 that makes it really complex so that you're not actually moving forward anymore because, God forbid, that would make some people insecure if like, oh, now people are moving forward and making progress. We got to upsell them on another course. Oh, but the real magic secret is over here. No, you commit and you hold the course no matter what. Right? And people will call you crazy. Your own rational mind will come in and say, you're crazy because here's the results. But I don't think that anybody, I know that it's like it's the Edison, right? In his light bulb. Everybody said he was crazy. He had plenty of data to prove he was crazy because a whole lot of failures that's proof for your rational mind to say, hey, you should just give this up. You should just turn around and quit. But that's where, once again, you got to tap into something deeper, which is your calling, your purpose, which is what you will find reflected in your own vision and future identity. All right. Because it's one of these things where it's not like you just sit around and make this up. If you just make it up, it's not really going to compel you. So that's one of the points. If you're not feeling motivated to follow through, it might be that your sense of vision or purpose that you've come up with, you manufactured rather than discovered. So that's a whole nother topic. We'll talk more about that. But I want to just be clear that you need your vision, your identity, that future identity is really a reflection of your own potential. And that's work of the soul, not of the brain and the body, right? Those two things are to come into alignment so that you can pursue that. And when your brain says, oh, this doesn't make sense because, I guess working for Amazon makes sense, right? Getting your job as a truck driver for Amazon for $20 an hour with benefits, that makes a lot more sense to the vast majority. And that's, again, well, if you want that majority results, do majority behavior, follow their advice. Then you'll get their results. Do you like their results? You know what I mean? That's what you got to start to calculate. Hey, is that resonate for you? Is that where you want to go? Is that what really feeds your soul? Or are you, like how's it going to feel at the end of your life when you're looking back on your life? Because we get one life, and yeah, we can argue about that and we can go into circles about, oh, is it blah, 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 reincarnation or what? You get one life. You want to pretend it's something different, go ahead. You get one shot at living your potential. And even if you are like a Buddhist who believes in reincarnation, even there's a whole lot hanging on how you live your life. So even if you disagree and you think there is reincarnation, you look at the traditional viewpoints on that, and everything hinges on, hey, you got this life to do something, and it's going to ripple through eternity because your soul is at stake. So when your soul's at stake, do you compromise and surrender for complacency because, oh, it doesn't make sense? Oh, it's a little scary. Oh, it's a little uncomfortable, right? If you do that, once again, if you do that, then you didn't really want it in the first place. If you're going to complain and make excuses and back out, that's just a sign that you didn't actually want it. Period. Bottom line, drop the mic. It's offensive. I don't care. Do you want to grow? Or do you want, like a cheerleader who says, oh, good job. It's okay. You can sleep in and still like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like if you're training to be an athlete, you don't miss you don't skip on training and sleep in and eat bad and expect things to work. You know what I'm saying? So you have to commit to whatever it takes to achieve that greatness. The greatness is that which is reflected from within you already. So stepping into that is going to demand a great deal of sacrifice, because what we're letting go of is the old identity, and it will fight for survival. And your old friends and your family are going to come in and fight for its survival too, because they're more comfortable with that than they are with you. Your greatness will make people uncomfortable. And it's a funny thing because nobody makes anybody anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't make anybody uncomfortable. They make themselves uncomfortable. So I mean, ultimately, you're not even responsible for how other people feel. You're only responsible for how you feel. Really, you're responsible for how you think, because that's what you can directly control. Your emotions are a side effect of that, and you can indirectly control those just by holding to how you feel or how you think, and then what do you do? Your thought and your action. You can really control those. Emotion is kind of caught in the middle, right? So just define your thinking has to stay stronger than your thought, than your emotion, right? Your thought has to be stronger than your emotion, so that you can guide your emotion through the hard times, and it can start to settle because it's on a slower wavelength. It takes a little more for the emotion to figure out, okay, we're okay. Okay, I can trust this. Okay, I can settle in, right? But you do that by directing your thoughts only on what matters, only aligning with what you're actually here to accomplish, because everything else is the enemy of that. You want to accomplish more, do less. Say no to 50% at least of what you're doing right now, because most of it is spinning you in circles. And you're not even working towards your vision and your identity, because you're holding on to behavior, action, because that's really what performance comes down to. Productivity and performance is about directing your action, right? And making the best use of your time. Well, how do you do that? Well, you got to know what you're moving towards in the first place. So I got to wrap up because I got a call here, but I just want to, just recap basically what is growth. Growth is moving from where you are into your potential. That's a continuum. I don't believe we've ever made it. I believe that's a continual journey throughout our life of uncovering our potential and stepping into it. That's what growth is. How do you do it? Well, first of all, you start to define what is that vision, who is that future identity, and don't perseverate over like, did I get it right? Just move. That's number one. Just move. Make a change. Do something different today than what you're used to, and you will start to experience growth. Act differently. Think differently, right? And you'll start to discover yourself along the way, because it's the greatest or most important relationship that most of us have never developed is the one with ourselves. And then we struggle with external relationships with like, I feel disconnected from my wife, or, from my kids or whatever. It's like, well, no kidding. You know, you're disconnected from yourself. Of course you're disconnected from others. It's like it, so I mean, you want to grow. Well, you got to reconnect with yourself, discover who you are, move towards it, take action. Number one, though, stay committed to that. Stay committed to this new course, this new focus, because what you focus on is what you get. So whatever you have right now is a current reflection of your focus, right? So anytime we're wondering, oh, what am I focused on? What do you have? That's what you're focused on. If you're feeling really anxious and worried about money and your business is going to fail, then you're focused on that. Bottom line, right? Because then you'll create that. You'll just create that as your experience. That's the program. That's the pattern. The outcome, the experience, the result is always a result of your thinking, which leads to feelings, which leads to action. And once again, feeling can kind of be all over the place. Just commit to thinking and action, and you're going to be okay. Don't worry about how you're feeling. Just don't worry about it. Just commit to doing the right action that's in alignment with this identity and this vision that you've set, and focus your thinking only on that. Focus your strategy and your thinking on that, and you're going to get there, right? And you just take the next step. Even when everybody around you says, hey, that's crazy, you should, it's not realistic. Oh, it's nice that you got your business here, but you're not going to be able to get it there, right? Whatever it is, whatever kind of kickback that you're going to experience when you do this, because you will, because other people want you to stay stagnant, because that allows them to feel comfortable with their complacency and stagnation. So you'll find that your whole peer group, your friend group will change when you change. That's part of what you have to be willing to sacrifice. If you're not, then you don't really want it. Okay? And look, let's not lie about it. At least, like, okay. I'm not going to say, oh, that's okay or fine. Just let's be real. Then you don't want it. Don't make an excuse. Or at least not with me, because I'm not going to accept it. You're just trying to sell me at that point, right? Everything's sales. Hey, if somebody's making an excuse, they're just trying to sell somebody else on their reason to, be complacent and a sellout on their own greatness. All right. Well, that's it. Set your vision, right? Discover your identity. Set that new course for your life take action towards it, stay committed to it. And that is what growth is. Growth is the becoming, the eternal continuum of becoming, stepping into your potential. You want to accelerate that potential, you want to accelerate that growth in your business, your performance, and your mindset, then yeah, reach out to me. You might be a fit for the Elite Mastermind, which is for men who are looking to do just that, accelerate their growth rapidly. All right. Thanks for watching this one. This is, once again, going live on podcast platforms. So please do give me some support there. If you like this message, I really appreciate your support. All right. Thanks again. Talk soon. Bye.